Welcome to the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast, where business owners, thought leaders, and community champions from across Central Illinois come to share their story. The Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast. Anything less would be uncivilized.
What's up, Central Illinois? I'm Derek Hayden. I'm here with Garrett Ulmer. We are your hosts for the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast, powered by Zambu. Zambu is a delicious grapefruit or wildberry vodka-based spirit infused with Brazilian buzz button. It's smooth, tasty, and leaves you with a signature tingle. Learn more at zambuliquors.com. Zambu, taste the tingle. All right, Central Illinois, let's introduce you to today's guest. Today's guest is the director of the Center for Business and Industry at Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois. Ladies and gentlemen of Central Illinois, please welcome Bonnie Moore. How are you doing, Bonnie?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So before we kick off the actual interview portion of the podcast, I'm going to kick it to Garrett, and he's going to take you through our speed round questions.
Yep, I can see the sweat drip, and you were talking when we mentioned earlier there are speed round questions. You've looked extremely nervous, so we're just going to go ahead and kick this off. We try to do the 6 questions in under 60 seconds. It's whatever time limit we need here. So first question is, first concert that you ever attended?
New Kids on the Block.
Nice.
What was that name of that song?
The Right Stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So it's funny because my wife was a New Kids on the Block fan, and we actually still have a beach towel that is in our vehicle that, like, where she puts groceries or different stuff. That's a New Kids on the Block towel that's in the back of the vehicle. So we still have some memorabilia.
Who was her favorite?
That I have no idea.
Oh, every girl had her favorite NKOTB.
I'll have to ask her this evening. I can't answer that one. So your favorite movie?
Oh, The Hangover.
I like
Great
it.
choice. Yes, yes. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, man. Butter pecan.
Great choice. iPhone or Android?
Oh, iPhone all the way.
Boom. Favorite social media platform?
I like Instagram because I like to look at all the pictures.
Yeah. And last but not least, why Central Illinois?
I was born and raised here, and my family is still here for the most part, but I like to be here because I know everybody here and I feel like it's a great place to live. I love the seasons, although I have to admit I'm not as in love with winter or super hot summer days as I used to be, but I like being able to have all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely get
Sure.
those here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you might even have multiple in one single day in some cases. So
Yeah,
That's right.
for sure.
right up your alley then.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Bonnie. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are as the director of the Center for Business and Industry, and then we'll talk a little more about what the Center for Business and Industry is. So just tell us a little bit about your business background.
Sure. It's not a straight line. I don't think anybody's ever really is. We have our plans when we're young and we go to college or we graduate from high school and we think we know what we're going to do, and then life happens. So I grew up in Windsor, so little tiny town in Shelby County. My parents still live there. Graduated from Windsor High School, transferred to Lakeland, then went to Eastern and earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education. At the time that I came out of college, was a time that education and the landscape was really changing. And I really wanted to be able to do science experiments with kids, and that wasn't necessarily allowed as much in curriculum changes. So I decided I didn't want to be a teacher anymore. And I went clear to the other end of the spectrum into long-term care.
All
So
right.
literally, I went from kindergarten teacher to nursing home. So big jump there. I started out in social services there and then promoted and worked my way through as an office manager, and also worked on a mental health wing. started a new Alzheimer's facility, and then ultimately became an administrator of a long-term care facility. And then I decided that I wanted to have a baby, and I couldn't work in a nursing home as an administrator and be there for my family the way that I wanted to be. So Will was born, and I became a stay-at-home mom. I did that for 3 years, volunteered at a vet clinic, and also substitute taught. And then life happens. I took a whole other turn and went to work at a manufacturer in Sullivan, Illinois, as a training team leader. And we built some great programs there. And I worked with Lakeland College Center for Business and Industry in my role at that facility. And then I made the jump to come over here. So I've been at Lakeland about 7 years, just a little over 7 years. And since I've been here, the landscape of education and business training has changed immensely. I went back to school and earned an MBA. That was quite an experience to work full time and be a single mom full time and go to school full time, but well worth it. And here I am. So
awesome. So an eclectic background led you to where you're at now. So tell us a little bit, what is the Center for Business and Industry at Lakeland?
So the Center for Business and Industry at Lakeland College has always been a branch of the college that until last year was actually off campus, but we're here in our brand new building on campus, which I invite any listeners to come over and see. But the whole point of the Center for Business and Industry was to be separate from the college and to provide customized business training solutions based upon individual business needs. So that was the original intent. But as we found, things change, especially the last couple of years have shifted the educational landscape immensely. And in our new building, we've been able to form a lot of relationships on campus that have allowed us to expand the offerings that we have. So some of the programs that we still do are really customized, and some of them are a few changes here and there in existing programs. But my building oversees the CDL program, which of course is huge right now. There's a huge need in industry for CDL drivers. We also oversee professional development and community learning. We have a state-of-the-art manufacturing lab right behind me. I'm kind of hoping that nobody turns on the robot because my wall shakes a little bit back there. And then we also do customized training solutions and traffic safety, but nobody likes to talk about that one.
Well, that's awesome. So Garrett and I have the opportunity, not just through the podcast, but also through our regular full-time jobs, to talk to a lot of business owners, business leaders in the Central Illinois region. And one of the questions we always ask them, just to get to know their business better, is, what are some of the hurdles and struggles you're going through right now? And at the very top of the list for every single one of them is finding and keeping good people. So how can an employer work with Lakeland and the Center for Business and Industry to help find and keep, maybe not necessarily keep, but find those higher qualified, valuable employees?
Sure. I will say that used to be a statement that I would only hear from certain industries, but now it seems to be industry wide and less of a one or two industry issue. So this is a spreading issue. We have a lot of population decline as a nation, and then also we have obviously out-migration from Illinois that's contributing to that issue, particularly the fact that they're younger people. One of the things, I just recently went to a conference put on by Illinois Manufacturing Association, and they had a keynote speaker that specifically spoke to employee desires and how do you attract and retain that top talent. And while most of the room really thought that it was based on pay and flexibility, actually employees are looking more for a path to a career. So that is what they ranked as number one. So I start here, but how do I get to this point moving forward? And that's where the college is a perfect fit for you, whether you're taking something that would be very customized and upskilling somebody who might have a base set of skills to move them up to the next level, or they're a technical genius, just need that leadership piece of it. Or if you have somebody that's coming into you fresh that's never worked in your industry before, and you need to put them into a program to gain the skill set because you can see talking to that person, they have a great desire to grow. We have a lot of options on the table for that. But investment in your own employees with a clear path moving forward is incredibly important to retaining the talent that you have, and also attracting new talent to your business. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the key. The gentleman that we were talking a little bit before we jumped on here, that we'd had on our prior podcast, he had a vast array of jobs. And one of the biggest reasons he tended to leave, in my opinion, from listening to him, was he didn't have a clear-cut path through the employer that he was working for. He maybe enjoyed doing this, but really wanted to do a different side of it and never got the correct path, or was never asked, hey, would you try this? Are you happy doing this? I think it's just getting to know your employees and understanding what their goals are too.
Yeah, nobody wants to be a number.
Yeah.
I would say that that's more at the forefront now than it was even 5 years ago. And everybody wants a plan and a path to moving forward, or to progressing in the role that they're at. Even if you never want to be more than the position that you're in now, I tell people my job functions and the essential duties that I have now are the same that I had 7 years ago. But the way that I do my job and who I interact with is 100,000% different. I mean, 4 years ago, I didn't even know what Zoom was, and I can't go a day without at least one meeting on Zoom. So you're still always going to need to up your own skill set.
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
So you mentioned some of the industries that are kind of the primary focal points of the Center for Business and Industry. Can you expand on like what types of businesses in each of those, and what type of employers could approach you to potentially grow their workforce and expand, helping find those valuable employees?
Sure. I mean, we do have some focuses here. Obviously, we have a manufacturing lab, which tailors the manufacturing. But interestingly enough, as part of growing the Effingham Regional Career Academy and the LIFT Center here in Mattoon, as well as part of Lakeland College's strategic plan, we have discovered that the technology that we have in our lab, I keep pointing back there like you can see it. I sort of wish you could. The technology is the same, but the applications are different. So for example, we're seeing a lot of programmable logic controllers, which is the brains of the organizations in manufacturing, in ag, in automated feedings and watering. And automation in the agriculture industry is huge. So we're starting to see some of the technology that was traditional manufacturing spreading out into other business areas, which is great. And as a matter of fact, we took our manufacturing lab and did a whole process control piece with EJ Water Cooperative, and how they manage their water towers and their water systems. Nothing I ever would have imagined using a manufacturing lab for, but we were able to customize the equipment to create virtual water towers in the lab.
That's great.
Obviously, CDL is going to be a huge one. Every industry that creates a product needs to move the product. So we have CDL students that are over the road, that work at their own farms, that are home every single night. So we have a wide variety of industry that enrolls students into CDL, and those students can enroll on their own privately and look for work, or we have businesses that will enroll students into those programs. As far as the rest, there's really not any business that we don't touch per se, because I'll have businesses call me that want customer service training, and we'll sit and talk through what that looks like and create a class or a program around that. Every business needs leaders. So leadership, we have a great leadership series that we do here, or that's customized on site. We're actually doing it right now at a business in Shelbyville that would be very IT and software based. And I've done that same program at a bank. And we've had it open enrollment here at the college, and we've had people from manufacturing, healthcare, banking, finance, all different industries. And it's nice to see them come together, because then they discover that, hey, we're not alone in this boat. Even though we work in totally different jobs, the same skill set is required, and we're still having the same painful problems. So it's really great and enlightening to be able to see that and recognize that some of the things that we do to solve problems for this business will also work for that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And seeing the partnerships, I guess too, I want to touch on that. You know, traditionally businesses like to hold things close to their chest, and they really aren't as open to communicating with other business partners or people that they would consider to be competitors. And some of those walls are breaking down, and we're seeing cooperative efforts from businesses more now than we've ever seen before.
I would agree,
Yeah.
because everybody knows that we've got to work together, or else this whole thing could, collapse. So might as well use everybody's strengths to our advantage and,
Yep.
win together. So as a student potentially looking to get into the workforce, what are some of the perks to joining the program? Or do they look more attractive to employers, and are they able to get placed easier, quicker? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, I think it depends on the program. But I will say, even in the traditional college programs, we're seeing a lot more business recruitment in actual programs than we've ever seen before. We've always seen it in some of those workforce ready programs like CIBL. We have a lot of trucking companies that will come in and recruit our students. So students who leave here don't ever leave here without a job, for the most part. But we're seeing that across the board in other programs as well, particularly on the technology side. But I will also say the college is making a big effort right now to partner with business and industry more than we ever have before, because when we've done surveys as part of our new strategic plan, our business partners, our communities, and our students are hungry for work experience. So those supervised occupational experiences that we've seen in some programs that weren't there before are starting to develop in new programs. And we're also seeing changes in scheduling here on campus. And that's not just to say, hey, now we offer classes online, because A, we did that a little bit before, and then B, the pandemic. So then we had to do it with everything. But we're actually seeing schedules change. So for example, our auto tech program that's rolling out will be Monday and Wednesday for freshmen and Tuesday and Thursdays for sophomores. And they're here 8 hours a day, but then that gives them the flexibility, and their employer the flexibility to know these 2 days a week, this person's unavailable, and they can work the other days of the week, which is key, because the vast majority of our students already work. They already have jobs.
Yeah.
And you can see what your schedule is going to look like for the next 2 years when you sign up for an associate's degree program. It helps you and your employer plan out what your schedule is going to be looking like.
Are you seeing a lot of employers pay for tuition into these programs?
We're starting to see more of that, because obviously employers are hearing the same things that I'm saying, and understanding that need to invest in your workforce. So there's that piece of it. Employees are starting to demand to have those opportunities to further their education. We're starting to see more things happening at a K-12 level that lend themselves to higher education. And the reality is that we know that the economy that we're living in right now is not always going to be the economy that we're living in moving forward. So the government, and forgive me here, because I know that that's a hot topic right now, but there's been a huge push towards the growth of apprenticeship programs, federally and at the state level. And we are seeing the impact of that here at the college. And financially, it's a great investment for an employer, because when you enroll a student in a registered apprenticeship program, the tax breaks are huge. You're talking a minimum of $3,500 a year per employee.
Wow.
Per year.
Yeah.
So when you couple that with the tuition here at the college of $100 a credit hour, you're really getting paid back on your investment alone. And then when you look at the ROI on apprenticeships at $1.50 on the dollar, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
to be honest with you. And employers are starting to hear that now. And I oversee registered apprenticeship programs, and now we have a navigator here at the college who's doing part of that for me. And then I'm only coming in for the curriculum conversations, which is nice.
Gotcha.
Those programs also allow, if you're going to do a customized training piece, you usually need to have a certain number of employees to make it cost effective for you, so that you're not paying a lot of money for an instructor for 2 people. But if you're looking at an apprenticeship program, you're enrolling students in classes that already exist in a schedule that works for you, so you don't have that burden.
Gotcha.
Very
Those
nice.
smaller businesses that don't have 10 people or so to
Sure.
put into a program can enroll 1 or 2 people at a time and still get that bang for their buck.
So if I'm an employer that's got, say, 3 to 5, maybe less than 10 employees, and I'm interested in something in this to see if it makes sense, do you set up consultations with them to kind of walk them through the process, what it looks like, tax advantage wise, cost wise, so they kind of know up front everything going into it to see if it makes sense for them?
Yep. So usually when that happens, either Nate, who's our navigator, or myself, will travel over to the business, look at the job descriptions, or talk to the employees about the job duties that they have. And then we'll take the curriculum that we have and figure out what coursework works to support that business need. And we'll talk through that whole process. The great part of having Nate here is that he handles all of the paperwork for the Department of Labor and does all of the legwork. So the hardest part for you as a business owner is selecting your employees in the curriculum and signing your name.
Wow.
It
Wow.
sounds, you hear, government, and people start freaking out about red tape and bureaucracy. This process is surprisingly easy. And I can say that because we've done it several
good.
times now.
That is
That's
good.
refreshing
Yeah.
to hear that. That's great.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So what region are you serving in Central Illinois?
So we serve the Lakeland College District.
Okay.
So obviously our biggest counties would be Coles and Effingham
Mhm.
County. We go to Paris, Marshall, Shelbyville, Pana, over to part of Arcola, Arthur, and then to the Indiana border. So we have
Awesome.
the largest community college district in the state of Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah. So I get a lot of miles.
Yeah.
Drive a
Well,
lot of
good for
miles.
you.
Yeah.
You guys are
Last
doing a
month-
great job.
Thank you.
Yes. So, how many employers right now are you working with? And is there a goal to, I asked you a hard question, it looks like. So.
It's not a hard question. I'm just trying to count in my head how many that there are. I would say right now we have active programs going with probably 11
Okay.
employers, and by active I mean programs that we're currently doing right now.
Okay.
That of course is subject to change at
Sure.
any given time, and how many that we're talking with. Obviously we want to touch as many businesses as we can and make an impact, so that we have solutions for a business, but also a way for people to make a better life for themselves, which is really the whole point of what we do here at CBI. So any given day, it's subject to change.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So you talked a little bit about the leadership development program, and you're doing that with a business in Shelbyville right now. Do you do some of that training? Like, are you involved in actively doing the training too, Bonnie?
No,
Okay.
interestingly enough, I actually took the training when I worked
Okay.
at a previous employer. So when
There
I
you go.
talk about how good it is, I can say that wholeheartedly myself. But my role is not to deliver any of the training. I do more of the consulting and then also the coordinating. So if we go to an employer and we say, hey, we're really not going to be your best bet, your best option to provide this training, let me find you someone that is a better fit for you. Sometimes that's my role. Sometimes my role is helping somebody figure out a succession plan.
Sure.
And sometimes it's as simple as them saying, this is what I want. These classes, enroll people for me. So
Awesome. So I will tell you, I was able to sit in on one of your talks to the Shelby County CEO, which we'll talk a little bit about that before we wrap up. But and you helped administer, I think it's called a DISC profile. Does that sound right? Okay. So as a leader or anybody in general, it helps you identify kind of what behaviors you have and how to work with other people. Are you willing to elaborate a little bit on that DISC profile? Because I know a lot of people listening to this are trying to find ways to connect more with their employees and leaders. Are you willing to share a little bit about that?
Sure. We do have DISC profiling as part of the CEO program, which was something that made me really happy because the first year we didn't have it.
Okay.
And then Midland instituted it. So DISC personality profiling really is really important for a couple of reasons. But first of all, let me just say the training is fun. Every time we do any sort of DISC training, you can see people aren't always really invested in it. But then once they start figuring out, that's why I do that, or that's what's important to me, or holy cow, that's why I don't get along with that person. And you can see the lights, start to come on. But I love the DISC profiling because you usually fall in one of 4 quadrants naturally. And so you take an assessment and answer some questions, and that will identify your default or your strongest traits. And then you can learn a little bit about the personality traits and your value system. Do you value the process? Do you value the result? Do you value the person? Those types of things. So you start to learn about yourself, but then the implications after that, there's training. So I'm a high D, which means I'm really direct. I'm bossy. I don't like the details.
Hey, my mom says she's not bossy. She's helpful.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm bossy. I know it. I've always been bossy. I'm sorry. I'm very direct. And for somebody that's not as direct as me, sometimes I can be overwhelming to them. And I'm friendly and I want to know about your sister's dog, or, I have that high I component as well. But for people who are on the other side of the quadrant, they're like, wow, this woman, like, does she drink 80 cups of coffee a day? She's nosy, those kinds of things. So there's that natural friction there. But then you can take those the personality profilings to a different level towards your leadership style, towards your communication style. One of the things I think that we always forget is, we have the golden rule of doing unto others as you would have done unto you. We really need to think about it in the platinum way. I don't need to worry about doing things for you the way that I want them done. I need to know how you want them done. I can't say to communicate with you, give me that pin, Derek, if you're not a D, because you're going to be like, man, she's bossy. I've got to say it in a way that you're going to be receptive to be able to get the job done. So it's really about motivating yourself, understanding your self motivators, and then being able to motivate others. And it's not only key to leadership in organizations, but it's key to personal, just a harmony, period. And it's funny because people will talk about taking it home and their spouse or their kid. And then they can kind of see things from a different perspective. They're not necessarily intentionally difficult. It's just a personality difference.
yeah.
So I love that because our leadership series really, it starts out with that profiling, where you are yourself. And it's really hard to cheat to get the answers. So even if you think you should be a certain way, it kind of reveals itself through the questions. And then you get your results, and then it does talk about yourself, but then how do you communicate? How do you recognize somebody else in a different profile than you are quickly, so that you can adjust your communication needs and your leadership styles? So I really, really like the DISC because it's simple to understand.
Yeah, it helped me. And I'll be honest with you, I completely forgot what my profile is, but it was spot on with, my kind of my mentality. And I can typically work with most people, but I sit back and listen. I can't remember what that one was, but it was pretty spot on.
You probably have some S.
S.
You probably have some S in you. I don't have any S.
That's all right.
I try. I just don't. And then when you get stressed out, that personality trait seems to come out even more.
Sure.
Which my team here can attest to that.
Yeah. Right.
Well, there's a huge difference between Derek and I. He can tell when I'm pretty well stressed. If he's stressed, he's normally pretty chill, even though like I can be like, "Are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm good." And I'm like, but he normally stays pretty calm, cool, and collect, where I wear it a little bit more out in front of me for people to see, whether I want to or not.
Yeah.
So
If my mouth doesn't say it, my face is gonna.
I'm kind of right there with you.
I
Oh, for
try.
sure.
I try really hard. But yeah.
It's just who
So-
you are. And now you know it, and you can, help
Embrace
others
it.
through it, I guess you could
And
say.
all
So,
of those, all of those personalities bring value to workplace. If you were all high D's, everyone would just boss each other around all day. And we don't tend to get into the details. So we would only worry about getting it done, but we wouldn't necessarily worry about getting it done right. So some of the, every single one of those groups in the DISC profile brings something that's necessary to the workplace. So that's one of the things we really stress with our CEO kids in particular, because this is their first foray into learning about this, is that no one profile is better than any other.
yeah, very good. So we've talked a little bit about CEO before we wrap up.
Sure.
A lot of our listeners probably have heard of CEO or know about CEO, but for those who are not familiar, can you tell them a little bit about what it is and talk about your involvement and how that kind of coincides with what you do at the Center for Business and Center for Business and Industry?
Yes. So I will say this, one of the best parts about my role, it is based on creating relationships, whether that's with business owners or chambers of commerce or students. So I sit on chambers of commerce here in Mattoon, and I'm involved in a lot of different things in Effingham. So that piece of my job is very important to me, to remain connected and develop relationships. But CEO brings something different to the table. CEO stands for Creating Entrepreneurial Opportunities. We have had CEO in Shelby County. This is our fifth class, and I've been involved with it from the start. Originally, it was an economic development idea, sort of pushing forward, and we've seen the fruits of that. Derek, you have a famous CEO student that you mentored, actually, that's still running her business in downtown Shelbyville.
Yep.
But it's really about the experience for the students. CEO is not like going to school. It is 100% funded by business investors in our county and in our area. And it's overseen by a board for financial and facilitator hiring decisions. We hire a facilitator who works through some curriculum with the students that is based on a book by Craig Linval called Things I Wish I Would Have Known, Things I Should Have Known. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But the students all go to local businesses. They discover what's available in their communities, which is nice, because I can't tell you how many times students didn't know what Stay Right Jenny Lou was. And that's always the one that blows their minds. The bobby pin place is always the one that blows their minds, but it gives students access to business presidents, to companies, and it allows them to see some of the inner workings. The students are also required to create their own business, their own class business, which creates revenue for them for grant dollars to start their individual business in the second semester. So we've seen things from murder mystery dinners to drive-in theaters. This year, they had a gala, which was wonderful. We had Grammy award-winning artists there in a silent auction, a nice dinner. I know you were there, Derek, as well. And then at the end of the year, it culminates in a trade show where the students are able to sell their own businesses and services to members of the community. So there's nothing more immersive, in my opinion, and I'm fairly involved on the side of K-12 education, but this just gives kids a great experience in understanding business and business workings. And it really immerses them in it. And sometimes the only thing that they learn is that they never, ever want to own their own business. But that's valuable.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Somebody
Better
at
to learn
17,
now than when you
who
start
wants
your
to
own
go get
business.
an MBA and find out that they hate business, right?
Yep.
I mean, that has a lot of value for the students. I've had some students say that, and by the end of the year, you can kind of tell which ones of them are like, yeah, no. I would rather work for somebody, or maybe later I want to own my own business. But now that we're 5 years in, we're starting to see some of those students come back full circle. They're graduating from college. We have students who are working now in businesses. Faith Wheeler is one that comes to mind. She's working at the co-op now that she's finished with college. Hannah Reed is working for Jeremy Yokish. Of course, Cassidy owns Fab Formals, and she's getting ready to expand her business to another piece, which is wonderful. And we're also seeing those students start to come back. I have 2 alumni sitting on our CEO board now, as well as an alumni from another program. So it's great to see the students understanding the value of the program and coming back and wanting to give back to the program because they know what an impact it's made on their lives.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is a great program. And, you know, I always say, I wish I had that when I was in high school, but Garrett and I joke, knowing me, I wouldn't have taken it in high school and then regretted not doing it. So
I do want to say, I mean, Derek serves as a mentor. So each of our students are paired with a mentor throughout the CEO program and process. And that's really driven by the student. So if they want a mentor that they talk to on a, you know, daily basis or a regular basis, or if they have someone that they just want to say, I want to run this idea by you, but that's really student driven and student led. And I had a student say to me this year, you know, I had no idea that I would be able to work side by side with so-and-so. And they see me as their coworker, not just as some kid.
Yeah.
And the value that brings to these students to move forward is really immeasurable.
That's awesome.
yeah, that's great. So Bonnie, if there's anybody out there who's interested in talking to you, whether it's CEO, the LLC Center for Business and Industry, or just has some questions for you, what's the best place and best way to contact you?
Sure. You can contact me by phone. I can't promise I'll answer. But I'll return your call. But my phone number is 217-238-8260, or you can contact me via email, which is probably going to be your quicker response since I'm out on the road quite a bit. My email address is bmoore, MOORE 71258. It's the longest email address ever, at lakelandcollege.edu.
Awesome.
So that's a mouthful.
That's great. Well, for all you listeners out there, make sure you're subscribing to the CIBL podcast on your favorite podcast platform. While you're there, give us a quick review. We would greatly appreciate it. You can also follow our CIBL social media pages on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can connect with Garrett and I there as well. And I'm sure you can find Bonnie on Instagram that she mentioned earlier, and probably Facebook, maybe even LinkedIn as well.
And
so
yeah, I'm everywhere.
Awesome. Well, until next time, Bonnie, you've officially been civilized. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks
Thanks so much, Bonnie. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CIBL podcast. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It's the civilized thing to do.